So let's take a look. Let's talk about the functions, okay? I'm not going to give you the program structure, but I'm going to walk you through how those functions might work. Okay, so first, let's get the user player going. And I'll call it user guess. And I don't think that I need any parameters there. I just need to get something from this function back. So it'll be a return function. And so what I need to do first is get their guess input. Now I'm going to use some textual cues to help the user. Nobody wants to type scissors. That's one of those words that's obnoxious. Okay, so R, P, or S is what I'm looking for. But who knows what they're going to type, right? So I'm going to strip that. And I'm also going to force it to lowercase. So whatever they type, R, P, or S, I'm going to strip it and make it lowercase. So once I've done that, I want to make sure that I'm standardizing their input because they still could have typed rock, paper, or scissors, right? So those are reasonable responses. R, P, or S, rock, paper, or scissors with a variety of capitalization. So if I make it all lowercase, I know I've got R or rock to deal with. So I'm going to do some work to clean up their input and make sure that if they type anything reasonable, that we're going to make sure to capture that. So I'm not going to send anything back from this function until I get a reasonable response to the user. So what I'm going to do is inside this function, I'm going to make a while loop because they're not getting out of here until they give me something reasonable. So it's going to be rock, paper, or scissors. And now I've got to check their input to make sure that it's okay. So I'm going to say if str guess equals R or str guess equals rock. Okay? Either one of those is acceptable. I'm going to make a return value of R. Now I just need elifs for the other two. So I'm going to cheat and copy elif. It equals paper. We're going to return a P. If it is a scissors, now if they can't spell scissors or something, that's not something I can fix. So we need to have an else. Okay. And Only when they guess something useful do we break the loop. So at any of these three, if I get an R, P, or S out of this, then we break out of the loop. Otherwise, it just keeps asking them. That's not a valid response. Please try again. Now, still inside this function, I'm indented the same level as the while, but not inside the while loop. After we exit the while loop, we want to, bless you, we're just going to return str return. Okay, so now it's going to keep asking them until they give me an R, P, or S, and then at that point it's going to return, which exits the function. The minute we have a return statement, we exit that function. So there's my user guess function, and I can actually test that, right? So let's run it. Rock, paper, scissors. No matter what I type, it's just going to keep asking me until I say rock, paper, scissors. And then it will return R, P, or S, depending on what I choose. So now I've got a user guess that is super tight, written like an absolute black box, does all the error checking, makes sure that I get an R, P, or S. Let's check out the computer guess. And again, that's just going to be a return something. Now the computer guess is a little different because I need to use that random import. I'm going to use that random module again. So I'll put that up at the very top. For my computer guess, I'm going to go right back here to the user guess. I'm just going to add one thing to each one of these because I want it to say what the user chose when they choose something. You chose paper, and it'll be why, apparent why I do this in just a second. Okay, so it'll say you chose rock, you chose paper, you chose scissors. Now if I go back to the computer guess, the first thing I need to do is I need to create a list. Now we haven't studied list types yet. Don't worry about the mechanics of why this is. But I'm going to call it AR choices for array choices. And I'm going to make a set of choices that says R, P, oops. There we go, in there, P and S. Now, why do I not have to say rock, paper, scissors? I don't really care. The computer doesn't care about rock, paper, or scissors. It doesn't even know what rock, papers, or scissors are. All I need is to get an R, P, or an S back from this because what I'm getting back from this is an R, P, or an S. So in the end, my comparison is just going to compare R versus P or whatever. So I'm just going to stick with the letters, lowercase, same format as what I get back from the user guess. Now remember, nobody's leaving this function until they give me an R, P, or an S. So I know I'm going to get R, P, or S from both of those things. So I'm going to now create a variable that says random.choice, AR choices. So what this says is use the random module and the choice function. The choice function in the random module takes a list and picks one thing from the list at random. and it will send it back. So when this line runs, str return will be equal to r, p, or s chosen at random. So now I'm just going to really quickly, if str return equals r, print the computer chose rock, elif str return equals p, helps if I put the colons in there, there we go, print the computer chose paper, else the only other choice here is the computer chose scissors. Okay, so now that prints the same thing, and then it's going to return str return. Okay, so now the computer guess, print comp guess, every time I run this, the computer chose rock, the computer chose rock, the computer chose scissors. So there's what it says, this is what it returns. So now I've got two functions, the computer guess and the user guess, right? So the last function I need to create is the judge. Okay, so the judge. So def, I'll call it who won. And we're going to take str computer and str user as parameters. So I'm going to take the RPRS from the user and the RPRS from the computer, and now I'm going to decide who won. Now, this is going to be more code than it seems like it should be, because I have to compare every possible choice from the user with every possible choice from the computer. So it's not really as simple as this, because I wish there was a color other than green, but that's okay. So the user can choose rock, they can choose paper, or they can choose scissors, right? And then the computer for each one of these can choose rock, paper, or scissors. And the computer can choose rock, paper, or scissors. And the computer can choose rock, paper, or scissors. So in this case, it's a tie. In this case, who won? Rock, paper, the computer wins. Rock and scissors, the user wins. So I'm going to get a different outcome for every possible combination there. But what you can see here, if you're starting to look at this, is maybe a couple of things. First thing is that you're seeing an if statement with an if statement inside each branch. But there's a way to simplify this. Can anybody see it? Yeah. For if the user wins? Yeah, I think the main thing that you got right there is the tie. Because anytime they're equal, it's a tie. So I can get rid of at least a few branches in that inner branch by saying if U equals C, it's a tie. So the first thing I'm going to say is if strc equals stru, then we're going to print it's a tie. And if it's not a tie, then we have to go into our other branches. But first I'm going to say, I'm going to have it return. I'm going to have it return a T for tie. Okay. And if the computer wins, I'll have it return a C. And if the user wins, I'll have it return a U. And that way I can use that externally. So else, I'm just going to start with let's start with the users. stru equals R. So there's two different possibilities in that branch where the computer chose something other than R. If strc equals paper, then the computer wins. And else, if it didn't choose paper and it's not a tie, then we know it chose scissors. So I'm going to say right here, just to make myself a little note, chose, not shows. Okay. And then we're going to say print U1. And so we're going to return we don't need parentheses on the return, by the way. We're just going to return that variable computer1. And on this one, we're going to return the user. Okay, so we got a couple more of these. We got elif, the user guessed paper. So now, if I could retype all of this, but that would be silly because the structure is almost identical. So I'm going to copy it and paste it. Okay, but I know we don't want the computer to do paper here. We want to do rock. And if the computer does rock and the user does paper, then the user wins. And paper and scissors. So the computer chose scissors. If you chose paper, then computer wins. And we return that the computer won. So now we've just got one more main branch, else. You can see how useful this is, putting it into a function so you never have to think about it again. Copy. Because if all this was in your main code, it's just going to take up a lot of space. So on this else, user chooses scissors. Okay, I'm making myself a note here because rock and paper, those are the other two choices. So if the user chose S, rock means that the computer won. And we return computer. And then if the computer chose paper, then the user wins. U won. Okay, and we return a U. Okay, so now we have a return condition at every branch, which is important. We always want to return something. But now we know who won. So now I can play a single round of rock, paper, scissors against the computer with one line of code. Ready? Print. Who won? STRC is first, so computer guess. And user guess. One line of code where I have these two functions given as arguments to who won. So what that means is the computer guess will trigger this. It will return a value, put it there. The user guess will trigger this, return a value, put it there, and then it will judge who won. And then it will print out the result. So let's try it. The computer chose paper. Oops. You know what I got to do here? I can't have the computer's guess first because it reveals it. So I've got to switch these around. STRU has to go first. STRC has to go second. So let's flip those because we don't want to give up the computer's guess first. That's just silly. Stop all, rerun. There we go. Rock, paper, scissors. So again, if I type anything other than rock, paper, scissors, it's just going to stay in that loop. I'll choose rock. Computer chose scissors. You won. And there's the return value. So now I have the ability to put those into a game. I'm going to give you a couple other hints. You're going to want to have int u score, int c score as variables. And if you create a while loop, then you're going to need to do two things. Okay. Okay, so if there's a tie, it doesn't do anything. You don't really need to do anything about that, so you can just do nothing. But if it's a user, one, then you're going to say int uscore plus equals 1. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If you set it up like this, which you might be apt to do, there's one problem with that. It's going to rerun all of these functions at every test, which isn't really what you want. You want it to run these functions, return a value, and then test that value to decide who won that round, and then do another round. So what we want to do instead of this is this. Okay. Okay, and then when somebody gets to two points, the game ends. You ask them if they want to play again, and then you reset the variables. So this is actually most of the program, right? Most of the program is here. So the who won has all this intense logic about which thing beats which thing. And then this one and this one are just concerned with getting the right kind of feedback from the user. Okay.